When Emmy welcomed her fourth child, Samuel, she was thrilled despite the challenges of her pregnancy. However, the joy quickly turned to shock and betrayal when her husband, Paulo, abandoned her after seeing that Samuel was black, a stark contrast to their previous 3 children. Convinced of Emmy's infidelity, Paulo left, leaving her to raise their children alone. As Emmy struggled to keep her family together, an unexpected visit from Paulo later brought a mix of regret and revelation. The DNA test results confirmed that Samuel was indeed Paulo's son, despite the differences in skin color. Through heartache and hardships, Emmy found strength in her children and the support of a newfound friend, Marcos, who became an essential part of her life. As she rebuilt her world, Emmy discovered that the love and resilience within her family were more powerful than the pain of the past. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Emmy's world was shattered in a single, agonizing moment as she lay on the hospital bed, her body quivering with the intensity of childbirth. Clinging desperately to the sides of the bed, her knuckles white with strain, she poured every ounce of her remaining strength into the excruciating effort of bringing her baby into the world. The room was filled with the piercing, relentless cries of the newborn, a testament to Emmy's valiant struggle through pain and exhaustion. Her breaths came in ragged, desperate gasps, each one a struggle against the sharp, searing waves of pain that crashed over her. As the baby finally emerged, Emmy's body gave out, collapsing back onto the bed in a heap of sweat and weariness. Her forehead glistened with droplets of perspiration, her chest heaving with the effort of catching her breath. The nurse, her movements swift and practiced, wrapped the newborn in a soft, cozy blanket, gently lifting the tiny bundle away from Amy's side. A profound sense of confusion and disbelief washed over Emmy as she stared at the nurse, her heart pounding with anxiety. "This is my baby, right?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of hope and dread. The nurse, maintaining a calm and professional demeanor, nodded slowly, but the reassurance in her gesture did little to ease Amy's growing sense of disorientation. The other doctors, who had witnessed the birth and were well acquainted with Emmy from her previous pregnancies, exchanged uneasy glances. They had seen her through the birth of her 3 other children in this very hospital, 3 children who had all shared her and her husband's pale complexion. This newborn, however, was startlingly different. His skin was a deep, rich shade, a striking contrast to the light skin of his siblings. The sight of this baby, so incongruent with the family's history, left everyone in the room grappling with an unspoken question: how could such a thing be possible? Just moments later, the door creaked open, and Amy's husband, Paulo, stepped into the room. His face, initially lit with the anticipation of meeting his new child, quickly fell into a mask of shocked disbelief. As his eyes fell upon the infant, a look of utter bewilderment crossed his features. He hesitated, stepping out into the corridor to confirm the room number, his mind racing as he sought to reconcile the reality before him with the expectations he had. His footsteps echoed down the hall as he checked the sign on the door, his anxiety palpable. When he re-entered the room, his expression had hardened into a stern, unyielding glare. He stood at the foot of the bed, his posture rigid and distant, as if the physical space between him and Amy could somehow shield him from the gravity of the situation. His eyes, once warm with affection, now bore into Amy with a cold, accusing stare. The air in the room seemed to crackle with tension, each person present caught in the whirlpool of confusion and disbelief that swirled around them. Paulo's inability to process the situation reflected the collective astonishment of the medical staff, who were left to navigate the turbulent sea of questions and emotions, and this unexpected revelation had stirred dread. As Paulo's piercing gaze bore into her, Amy turned away, her heart heavy with desperation. Tears streamed down her face as she choked out, "I can explain. Please, I didn't do it. I don't know what happened," her voice breaking under the weight of her anguish. But Paulo's reaction was one of cruel disbelief. His face twisted into a sneer as he dismissed her words with a harsh, mocking tone. He had already made up his mind. convinced of a truth he was unwilling to question. The accusation that Amy had been unfaithful, specifically with a colleague from the insurance company where she worked, was a bitter pill Paulo had swallowed whole. Amy's heart sank further as she heard these accusations, her mind reeling in shock. She shook her head fervently, denying the accusations, her voice rising with a mixture of panic and hurt. "That's not true. It's not true," she cried out. But Paulo's hardened expression made it clear he was unmoved by her pleas. The confrontation was abruptly interrupted when a nurse entered the room, gently but firmly asking Paulo to step outside so that Amy could have some much-needed rest. Amy, still recovering from the ordeal of childbirth, felt as though she was being subjected to a fresh layer of emotional torment. She could hardly fathom the cruelty of Paulo's treatment, especially given the vulnerability she was experiencing. The thought of enduring such mental anguish while she was at her most physically and emotionally exhausted was almost too much to bear. As Amy drifted into a restless nap, plagued by disturbing nightmares, she awoke to feed her baby. Despite the storm of emotions swirling around her, she could not help but marvel at the beauty of the child she held in her arms. His skin, though different from that of his siblings, did not diminish the deep, undeniable bond she felt with him. She noticed the familiar features, the delicate shape of his nose, and the way his eyes seemed to echo those of his 3 older siblings. Months earlier, she and Paulo had chosen names for their child, with Samuel being one of the names Amy had suggested. In the solitude of her hospital room, Amy clung to the hope that Paulo would eventually come to see reason, that he might reflect on the situation and consider other explanations for their baby's appearance. She knew Samuel was Paulo's child because in her heart, she knew she had been faithful to her husband throughout their marriage. Yet the painful reality was that Paulo's belief in her fidelity seemed increasingly tenuous. Upon returning home, Amy found Paulo's demeanor icy and distant. His coldness towards her and Samuel cut deeply, but Amy forced herself to wear a mask of cheerfulness, striving to protect her children from the emotional fallout. Despite her efforts, the weight of Paulo's rejection bore down on her, each day becoming a struggle to maintain a semblance of normalcy. The situation reached a breaking point when, just a few days later, Paulo announced his decision to leave. His words were final, his resolve unwavering as he packed his bags and prepared to walk away from the life they had built together. Amy was left in stunned disbelief, her pleas and arguments falling on deaf ears. She begged him to reconsider, to reflect on their decade-long marriage and the family they had created. The pain of his departure was compounded by the realization that her pleas for the sake of their children seemed to carry no weight with him. The sense of abandonment was profound, and the future seemed shrouded in overwhelming uncertainty as Amy faced the daunting challenge of moving forward without the man she had once believed would be her partner for life. Paulo's resolve was unshakable, his decision final. To him, Amy's supposed betrayal was a wound to his pride that he could not forgive or forget. He felt that if he were to overlook what he believed was her infidelity, he would be mocked and disrespected, unable to face the scorn of those who might judge him. Driven by a sense of indignation and a desperate need to preserve his self-image, he chose to leave, abandoning the wife and family he had once vowed to cherish. Amy's world came crashing down around her. The suddenness and cruelty of Paulo's departure left her feeling as though the very foundations of her life had crumbled. The man she had shared so many years with, the person she had trusted with her heart, was gone. The pain of his abandonment was overwhelming, and the future loomed as an uncertain abyss. She had never imagined he would be capable of such a callous act, especially considering their history. Amy and Paulo had known each other since their college days. What began as a friendship blossomed into a deep, committed relationship. They had supported each other through the ups and downs of their youth, and when Paulo proposed, it felt like a natural progression of their love story. They had no trouble starting a family when they were ready. Children came easily. Paulo had always envisioned a small, tidy family, 2 children, perhaps a pet, and a quaint house with a white picket fence, a picture-perfect life. Amy, however, had dreamed of a larger family. She had grown up as an only child after the tragic loss of her older sister in a school bus accident when she was just 4 years old. The profound sense of loneliness she had experienced in her early years made her determined to provide her children with the warmth and companionship she had missed. Despite her longing for a bigger family, Amy respected Paulo's desire for a more modest household. However, fate had different plans for them. The joy they shared during Amy's first pregnancy was palpable. They eagerly discussed their hopes and dreams for their unborn child, their hearts swelling with anticipation as they prepared for the new addition to their family. When their first child was born, their happiness knew no bounds. The arrival of their beautiful baby filled their home with love and laughter. Years later, when Amy became pregnant again, the couple was blessed with twins, a boy and a girl. Their joy was tempered by the knowledge that Paulo was not keen on having more children. Yet the arrival of the twins brought a new dimension of happiness to their lives. Amy took steps to prevent another pregnancy, understanding Paulo's wishes. But life has a way of surprising us. In 5 years after the twins' birth, Amy woke one morning with familiar symptoms. A mix of fear and exhilaration gripped her as she realized she might be expecting again. The test confirmed her suspicion she was indeed pregnant. The news was a roller coaster of emotions, as Amy faced the daunting reality of raising a child while grappling with Paulo's rejection and the shattered dream of a harmonious family. Paulo's reaction to the news of Amy's unexpected pregnancy was one of intense anger and scorn. His initial fury was directed at Amy, whom he called careless and foolish for what he perceived as a grievous mistake. His disdain was palpable, and his wrath seemed endless. Yet, as the due date approached, a faint warmth seemed to return to his demeanor, a fleeting hint of the man who once shared her joy. But that warmth was nothing more than a mirage, dissipating into thin air the moment Samuel was born. The sight of the newborn, with skin that starkly contrasted with the pale hues of the rest of the family, extinguished any remnants of compassion Paulo had been able to muster. His disapproval and anger were reignited with renewed vigor, leaving Amy to face the harsh reality alone. In the wake of Paulo's departure, Amy found herself grappling with the overwhelming task of raising her children on her own. Her first child, a 9-year-old, was at an age where understanding and emotional support were crucial. The twins, nearly 6 years old, were vibrant and curious, their lives now forever altered by their father's absence. And then there was Samuel, the child whose very existence had become a symbol of betrayal in Paulo's eyes. Amy felt as though she were navigating a stormy sea without a compass, her ability to maintain the life she once knew slipping through her fingers. The challenges she faced were compounded by the judgmental whispers of her neighbors. Once the envy of those around her for the picture-perfect family she had portrayed, Amy now found herself the target of cruel gossip. Behind her back, whispers of betrayal and hypocrisy swirled. The very community that had once admired her was now quick to condemn her, reveling in the downfall of her seemingly perfect life. The veneer of her carefully balanced existence, where her personal and professional lives harmoniously coexisted, had been shattered, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. In her darkest hours, Amy reached out to her friends, hoping for solace and support, but their responses were disappointingly inadequate. Caught up in their own lives and responsibilities, they could offer little more than sympathetic words and encouragement to stay strong. Amy felt an overwhelming sense of isolation as she navigated the crushing weight of her new reality. Each night she cried into her pillow, her sobs a testament to the profound anguish that consumed her. It felt as though her very soul was being torn apart, the intensity of her grief leaving her utterly drained. The emotional pain was relentless, sapping her strength and eroding her will to continue. Every aspect of her life now seemed devoid of motivation. The responsibility she bore felt like a heavy burden rather than a happy source of purpose. Her children depended on her, and their lives were irreversibly changed by their father's abandonment. They, too, needed stability and reassurance in the wake of his departure. Samuel, a defenseless infant, was the most vulnerable of all. As she struggled to care for her family and maintain some semblance of normalcy, Amy felt trapped in a cycle of despair and exhaustion. The weight of her new reality was almost unbearable, and the future seemed shrouded in uncertainty as she faced the daunting task of rebuilding her life from the ruins of her shattered dreams. Amid the chaos of her personal life, Amy found herself increasingly distracted at work. The weight of her troubles bore heavily on her, and her once stellar performance deteriorated. At unpredictable intervals, tears would stream down her face, catching the notice of her colleagues and creating an uncomfortable atmosphere. The situation reached a critical point one day when Amy was on the brink of making a significant error in a crucial report. Her superior, noticing her distress and the potential for costly mistakes, called her into the office. With a stern and empathetic gaze, her superior suggested that she take an indefinite unpaid leave. Although Amy was desperate for the income to support her children, the gravity of her situation became apparent. She accepted the offer with a mixture of relief and regret, grateful that she hadn't been dismissed outright. Desperation drove Amy to reach out to Paulo repeatedly. She bombarded him with messages and left countless voicemails, but each attempt was met with silence. It was as if he had dissolved into the ether, leaving no trace behind. Her efforts to connect through social media proved fruitless as she discovered that he had blocked her on every platform. Amy was engulfed in a storm of frustration, anger, and sorrow. Paulo had been absent for 6 long months, and not once had he provided financial support for their children. The strain of managing everything alone left her perpetually exhausted and overwhelmed. The household was in disarray. Unplanned naps and constant fatigue had left her unable to keep up with daily chores. The once orderly home was now cluttered, and she struggled to provide even the necessities for her children. In this trying period, Jeremy, Amy's 9-year-old son, emerged as an unexpected pillar of support. From a young age, he had observed his mother's resilience and began to mirror her efforts. He diligently picked up toys that had been scattered about and placed them neatly in the toy basket. He took the initiative to gather dirty clothes from his siblings and himself, ensuring they were put in the washing machine. Jeremy vacuumed the floors and wiped down the kitchen surfaces, taking on tasks well beyond his years. Mornings saw him preparing cereal for himself and his younger siblings, and he made sandwiches for them after school. When baby Samuel cried in the middle of the night and Amy fell into an exhausted slumber, Jeremy would gently rock him in his cradle. Sometimes his efforts succeeded in soothing Samuel to sleep. Other times, he would carefully bring the baby to Amy, waking her to tend to Samuel's needs. Jeremy's selflessness and dedication deeply moved Amy. She was astonished and heartened to see her eldest son stepping up with such maturity and responsibility. His actions became a source of inspiration for her. Despite the overwhelming challenges and her own emotional and physical exhaustion, Amy resolved to push herself further. She was determined to provide the best possible care and support for her children, even in the face of Paulo's abandonment. Jeremy's example of unwavering commitment and love rekindled her strength and resolve, motivating her to give everything she had for the sake of her family. One evening, while Amy was busily preparing dinner, the ring of her phone interrupted her routine. It was Patricia, a former colleague who had relocated to another state. Patricia's voice was bright and inviting as she extended a heartfelt invitation for Amy to visit her. Amy, pleasantly surprised and touched by the offer, eagerly accepted. It had been a while since they had seen each other, and the prospect of reconnecting filled her with warmth and anticipation. Patricia lived a life of affluence and comfort, thanks to her husband's prestigious position at a leading financial institution. Their home was a sprawling estate, a reflection of their prosperous lifestyle. Patricia's husband frequently traveled on business trips, leaving Patricia to enjoy the luxuries their success afforded them. The thought of escaping her everyday struggles and immersing herself in a different world, even briefly, was incredibly appealing to Amy. Upon arriving at Patricia's grand residence, Amy was enveloped in a sense of genuine warmth and hospitality. Patricia greeted her with open arms, and the two friends quickly fell into an animated conversation, reminiscing about their shared past and catching up on each other's lives. Patricia had thoughtfully prepared coffee and homemade cookies, and Amy felt a rare sense of ease and contentment that allowed her to momentarily forget her ongoing difficulties. Patricia's graciousness was a balm to Amy's weary spirit, and she began to entertain the idea of visiting her more frequently to escape the strains of her daily life. The days spent with Patricia were filled with joy and laughter, and Amy left her friend's home with a renewed sense of optimism, eager to return to her children and share her newfound cheer. But as fate would have it, her brief respite from her troubles was about to be shattered. The moment she stepped into her own home and began preparing dinner, a knock at the door signaled an unwelcome interruption. It was Paulo, carrying bags of groceries and clutching a letter. Paulo's presence was jarring, and Amy felt a surge of confusion and unease. Without a word of greeting, he handed her the groceries and the letter, his demeanor cold and distant. His refusal to enter the house or engage with her left Amy feeling paralyzed and bewildered. "I've come to give you money for the children," he stated gruffly. "And this is a letter I wrote to Samuel." His curt, indifferent tone spoke volumes about his current state of mind. With trembling hands, Amy opened the letter. Inside, Paulo's words revealed a surprising confession. He had come to terms with his denial about Samuel's paternity and was overwhelmed by guilt and regret. The letter expressed his sorrow and acknowledged the profound mistake he had made. As Amy read Paulo's apology, her tears flowed uncontrollably. The letter, though heartfelt, felt woefully inadequate in the face of the pain and abandonment he had caused. Samuel, an innocent child, had been caught in the crossfire of Paulo's emotional turmoil, and Amy struggled with the bitter reality that no letter could undo the damage done. Amy understood that she could not change the past, nor erase the hurt that Paulo's departure had inflicted upon their family. Yet she clung to the hope that Samuel might find some measure of solace in his father's words, and that, perhaps, Paulo's attempt at making amends could be a step toward healing. Despite the deep wounds left by his actions, Amy wished for some semblance of reconciliation and redemption, both for herself and for her children. In time, Amy received a startling revelation from a friend that clarified a lingering suspicion. She discovered that the individual she had long suspected of being Samuel's father was, in fact, an old high school classmate. This classmate had worked alongside her for a period and had once mentioned that his skin color was inherited from his father, who was of African descent. This revelation finally provided Amy with a clear explanation for Samuel's distinct skin color, confirming that he was indeed the biological child of this former classmate. The realization brought a mix of relief and further heartache as she came to terms with the complexity of the situation. Despite the tumultuous emotional landscape she navigated, Amy remained steadfast in her commitment to her children. She poured her heart into their upbringing, striving to offer them a loving and nurturing environment amidst the turmoil. Her determination to give them a fulfilling life never wavered, even as she grappled with the many obstacles that life had placed in her path. Amy found solace in her role as a mother, drawing strength from her boundless love for her children and the support of those who genuinely cared for her well-being. As time passed, Amy's children began to exhibit signs of distress. They became increasingly withdrawn and distant from their peers, their sadness evident in their behavior. Amy, overwhelmed by her grief and the burden of her situation, found herself unable to maintain the facade of normalcy any longer. Her heart ached with a profound sense of loss and helplessness, and she felt the need to release her pent-up emotions. In her vulnerability, she confided in Marcos, a trusted friend who had always shown her kindness. Amy opened up to Marcos about her struggles, expressing her deep despair and the overwhelming sense that her world was falling apart since Paulo's departure. She shared every detail of her anguish, laying bare the raw and painful reality of her life. Marcos listened with a heart full of empathy, moved by the depth of her suffering and the plight of her children. His compassion was evident as he offered a gesture of kindness, a chance for respite and distraction from their daily struggles. Marcos proposed taking Amy and her children out for a walk and a meal. The idea of a day away from their usual environment excited the children, who eagerly prepared for the outing. They dressed in their best clothes and promised to behave well, their spirits lifted by the prospect of a new experience. The trip to a recreational center provided a much-needed break from their challenges and a momentary escape from their sorrow. For Amy, this gesture of support and kindness was a small but significant light in the darkness, a reminder that amidst the difficulties, there were still people who cared and were willing to stand by her in her time of need. As the children reveled in their day at the recreational center, Amy and Marcos found a quiet moment to talk. Marcos shared a deeply personal story, revealing that he had lost his wife due to complications during childbirth. His daughter, who was the same age as Jeremy, had survived the ordeal, but the experience had left Marcos grappling with profound grief. He had managed to raise his daughter with the help of a supportive community, a network that had provided him with invaluable assistance during his darkest times. Moved by his story, Amy listened intently as Marco spoke about how the community had been a lifeline for him. This same community had offered him both emotional and practical support, helping him navigate the challenges of single parenthood. Marcos extended an invitation for Amy to meet this supportive group, believing that their camaraderie could be beneficial for her as well. The community's weekly meetings were filled with warmth and compassion. Amy was introduced to families and singles who were dedicated to growing together and helping one another. Everyone was incredibly welcoming, and they greeted baby Samuel with genuine affection. When Amy shared her story, the community responded with an outpouring of support, eager to assist in any way they could. One of Amy's most pressing concerns was her inability to afford a babysitter while she worked. Her dwindling savings were a constant source of anxiety, and she feared that without immediate help, she would be unable to support her family or manage essential expenses. The community, recognizing her dire situation, rallied together. Several mothers volunteered to create a schedule to care for Amy's children, each taking turns to look after them during her workdays. This collective effort provided Amy with the much-needed relief and stability she had been missing. With the support of the community and Marcos, Amy began to regain her sense of self and confidence. She felt revitalized and eager to return to work. Her renewed focus and determination were reflected in her performance. She exceeded sales expectations and received a double promotion. The success was celebrated by the community, who had become like a second family to her. As Amy's situation improved, she was able to afford additional childcare options, including professional babysitters. The community's support continued, with the mothers still offering their help when needed. They praised Amy for her dedication to her children and her ability to raise them with good manners. Amy was deeply touched by their kindness and expressed her gratitude with heartfelt appreciation. Amid this newfound stability, Amy and Marcos developed a closer bond. Marcos, who was actively involved in organizing activities for the children, became a frequent presence in Amy's life. Their interactions grew more meaningful, and Amy began to develop romantic feelings for him. Marcos, too, showed affection and care towards Amy and her children. Their mutual support and understanding blossomed into a deeper connection, and they eventually started dating. Their relationship grew stronger over time. Amy found in Marcos a compassionate and dependable partner, someone who not only supported her but also cared for her children with the same dedication. Together, Amy and Marcos created a nurturing and loving environment for their blended families, finding solace and happiness in each other's company. Their journey from heartache to healing was a testament to the strength of community and the power of love to mend even the most broken hearts. More than a year had passed since Paulo left, and Amy and her children had found a harmonious rhythm in their lives. They had adjusted to their new routine with remarkable resilience. The children took an active role in household chores, and Amy managed to balance cooking, cleaning, and spending quality time with them. Their performance in school and extracurricular activities had never been better. They supported each other and looked after one another, forging a strong sense of unity. Every family meal was a testament to their togetherness, and Amy couldn't help but feel a profound sense of pride. In these moments, Amy realized that the family was thriving without Paulo. His absence had highlighted how his presence hadn't been as indispensable as she had once believed. Amy's perception of their old family dynamics had shifted. She had come to understand that, while Paulo had been a part of their lives, he hadn't been the cornerstone of their well-being. Financially, Amy was flourishing. Her income had tripled compared to what she and Paulo used to earn together. Back then, Paulo's slightly higher salary had often gone towards his indulgences, including designer items he couldn't truly afford. His desire to project a particular image had often overshadowed their family's needs. Amy had shouldered most of the financial responsibilities, paying the bills and managing household expenses, while Paulo's contributions were often spent on his desires. With this newfound financial stability, Amy felt empowered. She realized that her contributions had always been substantial, and her ability to support her family on her own was a testament to her strength and resilience. She no longer felt the need to compare herself to Paulo's past status or contributions. Instead, she embraced her newfound independence and the thriving life she had built for her children. Despite this progress, Amy faced one lingering issue. Paulo had yet to finalize their divorce. Nearly 2 years had passed, and the divorce papers had not been filed. Amy suspected that Paulo was stalling to avoid paying alimony or a settlement. Although this unresolved matter was a source of frustration, Amy chose to ignore it for the time being. Her focus was on the positive changes in her life and the well-being of her children. She found solace in their unity and her financial success, and she continued to move forward with the strength and resilience she had developed over the past year. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, Marcos, Amy, and the children enjoyed a picnic at the park. The kids, including the adorable 3-year-old Samuel, played happily together. Marcos watched the scene with a contemplative expression, prompting Amy to ask if something was wrong. Marcos remarked on the unique quality of the children's eyes, which led Amy to explain that they had inherited them from their father. Marcos then noted something troubling. If the children shared such distinctive features with their father, it suggested that Samuel was indeed Paulo's biological child, despite his dark skin. Amy was taken aback and distressed by this observation. She had once considered a DNA test to disprove Paulo's claims, but had dismissed the idea. Marcos's comment reignited her determination to uncover the truth about Samuel's parentage. Amy promptly arranged for a DNA test, using a sample of Paulo's old skin. The results confirmed the unimaginable Samuel was indeed Paulo's biological child and his dark skin was hereditary. The doctors explained that the skin color could be attributed to genetic inheritance from Samuel's black ancestors. Amy struggled to understand this revelation, as neither she nor Paulo had any known black ancestry. The following day, Paulo called Amy with startling news. He had just learned from his mother that his biological father was black. Paulo's mother had been engaged to a black man who died in an accident before Paulo was born. She subsequently married a white man and raised Paulo as her own. Paulo admitted that he had never been aware of his true heritage and expressed deep regret for his past actions. He begged Amy to reconcile, promising to be a father to all the children, including Samuel. Despite Paulo's pleas, Amy refused to reconcile. His abandonment of the family for 3 years and his failure to support them had caused irreparable harm. Although she had divorced him, she allowed him to visit the children occasionally. However, the children were uncomfortable around their father and preferred Marcos, who had become a steady and loving presence in their lives. As time went on, Marcos and Amy's relationship deepened. They continued to build a life together, and the children, including Marcos's daughter, thrived in their blended family. The joy and stability they found together contrasted sharply with the turmoil of the past. Years later, Marcos and Amy married, solidifying their bond and creating a nurturing environment for their children. Paulo's regret over his past decisions grew, but Amy held no grudges. She had moved forward, forgiven him, and found peace in her new life with Marcos. The past had been painful, but it had led to a future filled with love, resilience, and happiness for Amy and her children. As we conclude this journey through Amy's story, we're reminded of the incredible strength and resilience that can emerge from even the most challenging situations. Amy's experience teaches us about the importance of facing the truth, the power of forgiveness, and the value of a supportive community. Her journey from despair to renewal underscores how crucial it is to embrace change, seek help when needed, and build a loving and supportive environment for those we care about. We'd love to hear from you. What is one key lesson you've taken from Amy's story that you plan to bring into your own life? Share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring content. Thank you for watching.